Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about privacy and how difficult it is to understand privacy, and why you as a dungeon master have to understand privacy very well in order to handle Session Zero correctly, and why privacy is a major concern for every modern Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition dungeon master. Okay, so let's talk about this. All right. So what is dangerous in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, before Tasha's, Session Zero was introduced 7 years after 5th edition launched, and it was introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And it's interesting because Session Zero, I'm vehemently opposed to Session Zero. I think Session Zero is used by dungeon masters who want to waste players' time and don't understand a myriad of the social ramifications of Session Zero, and why it's Session Zero is just terrible from 100 different directions. I've talked about it previously. I'm opposed to Session Zero. Session Zero was put in from the concept of external people looking at Dungeons and Dragons saying Dungeons and Dragons is dangerous, right? If you don't take spiders out of your game, someone who doesn't like spiders could be traumatized by your play, right? But what the real understanding of Session Zero is that Session Zero is actually, in my humble opinion, now the most dangerous thing that exists in Dungeons and Dragons. And the reason why is what Jennifer Kretschmer said. Jennifer Kretschmer, she is a Dungeons and Dragons writer. She was on Candlekeep Mysteries. And she said that if you do Session Zero wrong, you're asking players to talk about their fears openly in front of other people, and you can traumatize them, right? So Session Zero is very tricky. It's really tricky, and you as a dungeon master need to know how to do it right. And the most important part, why you should ignore, not everything in 5e is perfect. And I'm telling you right now, do not run Session Zero. It is horrible from 55 different directions, and I have a new one for you today, which is privacy. If you respect your players' privacy, you will not run Session Zero as directed within Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So let me lay out my idea, my supposition for this, okay? All right, so I was listening to a podcast, I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell, okay? I've read all his books. He's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of him. If you don't know Malcolm Gladwell, I highly recommend reading any of his books, and eventually all of his books. He's an intellectual Canadian philosopher who writes books, and he functions as a journalist sometimes. He's brilliant, okay? So he had some people on, and actually he was hosting a podcast on his podcast, and they were talking to a drone delivery service that has spun up in America. And they said, hey, we have a functioning drone delivery service in America, but it's almost impossible to do it. And what we're doing right now is not scalable and not sustainable. And the podcast, and that was the drone delivery service, like point person talking on the podcast. And so the podcast host said, well, why? And they said, well, in an international country, we have this thing up and running, right? This drone delivery service. And the reason why is everything in the air in this other country has to have a transponder that tells all other aircrafts where it is at all times. But in America, we have an antiquated law, and we have not allowed We have not allowed a law that puts a transponder in every airplane, right? So when America catches up to the internationals, they'll understand, and then we can have a modern drone delivery service, right? And I thought this was really fascinating because this guy understands drones but doesn't understand humans. It's not an accident that we don't have a law that doesn't require a transponder in every airplane that tells every other airplane where it is at all times. The reason is privacy. In America, you can go to a small airport, take off, land your plane in another place, and nobody knew you flew there, right? Or it'd be very hard for them to find it, right? It's a privacy issue, right? And what that guy's saying is, so that I can deliver your tacos with a drone, I want to burn your privacy to the ground, right? He doesn't understand privacy, right? He also doesn't understand that America don't follow any international country. The world follows us. You got it wrong way round, buddy, right? And that's the issue. Like, all these people are like, oh, hey, y'all should do y'all should have free healthcare the way we do, right? And then Russia currently, we've stopped sent like a whole bunch of regular American companies have stopped sending things to Russia because Vladimir Putin is the world's greatest villain, right? And you know what came out? There were international news stories on every major news story that said Russians are having a hard time getting the American drugs they need. They didn't say they're having a hard time getting the drugs they need from universal health care that didn't make any drugs they need because there was no incentive to. They said they need the best medicine in the world, which is American medicine, which was made on capitalist dollars because people work hard for money. They don't work hard because the government said your product will be given out for free, right? So basically, here's the lessons, right? America knows what to do first. We don't follow the world follows us. Second, privacy is outrageously important, right? And America doesn't have transponders in every plane because they want people to be able to travel privately, right? And they're like, you know what? Your privacy is more important than tacos being delivered to your house by a drone, right? So America knows exactly what it's doing, and they put privacy first, and that's what you need to do, right? If you don't want to take one of your players who is absolutely traumatized on 3 different subjects and put them at your table and then run this session 0 where everybody talks about everything they hate and everything they don't like openly, or you're going to build some kind of very weird structure where everybody's putting in information secret, like it's a mess. Session 0 is a waste of time, and it is absolutely a platform to burn the privacy of your players as a dungeon master. Don't do it, right? Don't trade your privacy for getting tacos delivered to your house by a drone, right? Don't run session 0 and out your players for things that they're frightened about. Session 0 is a horrible, terrible tool used by dungeon masters who are either still maturing or just are never going to be good. One or the other, right? Session 0 is a committee to hold a role-playing game. It is the worst thing in Dungeons & Dragons. I wish it had never been introduced in Dasher's Cauldron, and I'm just bringing you one more reason to avoid it like the plague. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.